Hey, RosterWatch Nation, it's your friendly neighborhood trash man. Here to talk about the daily goings on in fantasy football, since yesterday at least. Let's go ahead and get started. First off, Marvin Mims Jr. could emerge as the number 2 wide receiver option behind Courtland Sutton. We've talked about it in this offseason. Mims has yet to have a breakout season, but he's only 23. Took a big step forward last season. 39 catches, 503 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Most importantly, one could say. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler as a return man. But hopefully he can translate that to, regular production in fantasy. Only played on 27% of the Broncos' offensive snaps last season. So given a larger role, he could very well become a regular fantasy contributor. He'll need to beat out Troy Franklin, upstart, and Devon Vele, who has a red zone presence himself. But Mims has all the tools to take a step this season and hopefully step into the number 2 receiver role in Denver. Bijan Robinson said the Falcons have outlandish goals for the team's rushing production in 2025. Outlandish. That almost sounds like he thinks they're not capable of it. I don't know. Either way, they say they can improve on the ground after finishing 2024 with the league's 10th most rushing yards and 9th most rushing scores. We expect a lot out of Bijan Robinson. I mean, he's a special talent. And, in the rarefied air of a Saquon Barkley, maybe even better, potentially. They were 7th in rush EPA and 1st in rushing success rate, so do it more. With a guy like Michael Penix under center, they'll probably need to do it more, a young quarterback like that. But it also means that we could see more Tyler Algier this season. If they want to run the ball to the extent that they say they want to. It's not going to be all Bijan Robinson. There's going to be some Tyler Algier, though, so maybe we see a bounce back for Algier this year. Maybe not a bounce back. Maybe bounce back isn't the right term, but maybe breakout for him. If they're going to run the ball as much as they say they are, man, with a young quarterback, Algier's going to be in that mix too, so he's somebody to consider in deeper leagues, adding to your roster. Speaking of second running backs you could potentially add to your roster, Will Shipley is arguably the offensive player most under the microscope for the Eagles this offseason. He's a 4th-round pick out of Clemson last year. Played a little bit as the RB3 there in Philadelphia. Kenneth Gainwell is no longer with the team. He's a Steeler now. So that leaves some room for Shipley to get more run, literally, in that Eagles offense, in that spectacular Eagles offense. The thing is, he's probably not going to get much goal line action. I mean, we got the tush push to thank for that, and Saquon Barkley. But he could get more involved in, as a passing back. They have A.J. Dillon there, who's more of a downhill runner. So it kind of leaves Shipley to be potentially that third down receiving back for the Eagles. So he could have a role, something to monitor in deeper formats. Something to monitor in all formats. Titans coach Brian Callahan said, I think we can do a better job managing the load so that they play a little more evenly, when asked about Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. Spears was not unarguably second fiddle to Tony Pollard last season as the number 2 in Tennessee. Through 2 years, he's played on 253 rushing plays, blocking 63 times, and 626 passing plays. Callahan also seems to always preface this with something on the lines of in a perfect world. And we're definitely not in a perfect world. So maybe talking up Spears this way isn't, you know, maybe it doesn't move the needle immediately for fantasy purposes. Maybe he's not the 1B as of yet. But, that would be good news if Spears did have closer to an even role with Tony Pollard, which I think he should. He's a great pass catching back. And I think with the young Cam Ward under center, he makes for a good safety blanket in a lot of different situations. So hopefully Tyjae Spears gets more action this season. The coach is talking him up like he will. So another name, I guess the theme of this is, like young running backs, second running backs getting their due potentially this season. And more safety blanket talk. ESPN's DJ Bien-Aimé believes Christian Kirk looked like a potential safety blanket for CJ Stroud in OTAs and minicamp, which is interesting to me because Kirk, is profiled more as kind of a deep threat in the past. But Kirk has been called the slot demon by Texans defenders in the early offseason camp. Take that however you will. And he looks like the clear number 2 option behind Nico Collins at this point. Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, they could make a push. But in the early goings on, Christian Kirk looks like the number 2 receiving option in Houston and should be treated as such in draft. So this bodes well for Kirk, who's kind of fallen off recently as far as fantasy is concerned, but found a new home in Houston, and hopefully things work out for him there. Looks like the number 2. Looks like somebody you should definitely add to your rosters. Could get a lot of potential value from Kirk in a year. We're expecting CJ Stroud to bounce back in as well. In more football news, the Athletics' Colton Pouncey believes that Jameson Williams' trade could be on the horizon in 2026. The sides can't agree on an extension. The Lions did trade up to take Isaac Tesla in the 3rd round of the draft. So maybe that was a bit of a warning sign for Jameson Williams, although I think they're different players ultimately. And I think Jameson Williams, honestly, if he was on any other team, but the team's number 1 receiver easily, I think he's a special talent, and we've seen it. We've seen it in stints. I mean, I think they should pay the guy, but maybe Detroit feels like they don't have to, like they don't need to. They have enough weapons to where they don't necessarily need to pay him the kind of money that he thinks he deserves. I think he could go somewhere else and get paid. So I don't think it would be bad for Jameson Williams necessarily to go to another team. On another team, he had an opportunity to be a legit number 1 receiver. So I don't know. Keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully, I mean, I hate to say it, but hopefully he ends up on another team in 2026, potentially. In more football news, Jerome Ford, a name we haven't mentioned in a while, is believed to be the starter for now and will still play and probably start early in the season, according to the Athletic Zach Johnson. How many opportunities and how soon they come will probably be decided by how Judkins plays, Quinshon Judkins, that is, and progresses this summer, writes Jackson. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Judkins is the player we expect to take the reins in Cleveland. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense for right now to say Ford is still the guy until Judkins proves himself. But I think Judkins will prove himself pretty readily by the time the season comes around. But it makes sense to hold on to Ford if you already got him, But I really don't think he's going to stick as the starter in Cleveland Too much talent there in the backfield, though injuries could happen. But he's not somebody who I'm really banking on in fantasy. Sticking with the Browns, the Athletics' Zach Jackson also suggested that Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel will potentially compete for a roster spot in training camp. The Browns' Week 1 starting job coming down to Kenny Pickett versus Joe Flacco. Right now, Kenny Pickett is said to be in the lead. I don't know if I believe that. I think Flacco's a better quarterback, a more established quarterback for sure. Yeah, I don't know if it makes sense to keep 4 quarterbacks on that team. And it's stupid what they did. I mean, drafting Gabriel before Sanders, I guess that lends to the idea that Gabriel is the higher priority, is the better priority according to the Browns. But to me, it's obvious that Sanders has the most upside, really, of anybody in their quarterback room. So I don't know what the Browns are doing. It just seems like they continue to be a comedy of errors, commit a comedy of errors, if nothing else. I don't know if they are a comedy of errors. I don't want to put that on them necessarily, but they do some silly things sometimes. And I do think that Sanders has the most upside of that quarterback group. So cutting him, I mean, him not making the team, it seems unlikely to me, but I guess it's within the realm of possibilities. In more football news, Kirk Cousins, one of my least favorite fantasy quarterbacks, or quarterbacks just in general. Just because I feel like he just gets paid and continues to have nothing to prove that he's worth that paycheck that he gets. I mean, he's one of the highest paid, overall in the past decade quarterbacks in the league, and got really nothing to show for it. But anyways, I digress a little bit. Cousins said he feels a little bit misled by the Falcons after they took Michael Penix in the first round of the 2024 draft. What did he think? Cousins thinks he's the future of an NFL franchise entering his age 36 season. I mean, I guess some of these older quarterbacks are a little bit delulu. You know, they see Tom Brady doing it, and they think that they could play well into their 40s. I don't see Cousins doing it, especially coming off an Achilles tear. What does he think? They're not going to add somebody? I mean, I guess because it was a really expensive contract, people are just used to shelling out money for Cousins. You know, maybe that would confuse him a little bit. Before they took Penix with the 8th overall pick in the draft. Cousins said he would have likely stayed with the Vikings if he had known the Falcons would use major draft capital on a quarterback. Certainly, if they had the information around free agency, it certainly wouldn't have affected my decision, Cousins said. I had no reason to leave Minnesota with how much we loved it there. Both teams are going to be drafting a quarterback high. But I also learned in 12 years in this league that you're not entitled to anything except for a huge paycheck. That's what he feels like he's entitled to and has been. I don't know. I think that those inflated paychecks have given him an inflated ego. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Cousins ends up somewhere else before the season starts or before the season ends. Anyways, that's the recent football news that I'm touching on today. Hope you have a football-friendly afternoon and evening. And one of us will see you tomorrow, if not all of us. This has been the Trash Man on behalf of RosterWatch.com. Give us a follow. Push the like button. Smash it, if you will. Or even if you won't. Until next time, be ready.
This is Anthony Richardson, and you're listening to Roster Watch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to Roster Watch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to Roster Watch.